Delilah looked me in the eye and said, "Send Maisie and Eli to boarding school or the wedding's off." I looked back and said, "Then this wedding never existed." That was the moment everything changed. One sentence that cut through months of pretending, decorating, planning, smiling in photos that didn't mean a damn thing. I still remember the way her voice didn't shake when she said it, like she'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror. The sharp scent of sandalwood from her essential oil diffuser hung in the air. Her hand was resting gently on the table right next to the ring I'd given her just 3 months before. Maisie and Eli were upstairs in their pajamas, giggling over some cartoon, still believing this woman downstairs might one day be their stepmom. I remember the way my chest tightened, not from shock, not even from anger, but something colder, something final. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I just stood up, picked up the ring and said, "We're done here." And when I walked out of that house, I knew something deep in my bones. She wasn't trying to build a family. She was trying to replace one. Have you ever been forced to choose between love and the people who depend on you? What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know where you're listening from. And if you believe family comes first, hit that subscribe button because this story only gets deeper from here. The first time I saw Delilah Morgan, she was barefoot in the grass at the Macon Community Green, twirling a paper fan between her fingers and laughing at something a stranger's toddler had done. She had that open kind of smile, sunlight and syrup, and for a man like me, widowed, tired, and a little too used to eating dinner over the sink, it felt like a moment out of a life I no longer believed I could have. My name's Caleb Harrow. I'm 38 years old, civil engineer, father to Maisie and Eli, 12 and 10. Their mom, Claire, passed away 4 years ago. Brain aneurysm. One minute she was there, still in her scrubs making pancakes on a Saturday morning. The next minute she was gone. After that, I didn't date. Couldn't. My world became school pickups, grocery lists, building Lego castles at 8 p.m. when I had deadlines at 6 a.m. Every room in our old house in Macon echoed her memory. Even the laundry room smelled like the detergent she used. But we got by. The kids were okay, more than okay. Maisie's the observant one, quiet but sharp. She reads everything, nutrition labels, chapter books, even my work emails if I leave them open. Eli, he's loud in the best way. Loves drawing aliens and building things from scratch. I didn't have a perfect system, but I had stability. So when Delilah walked into our lives, it wasn't because I was desperate. It was because for a moment I let myself want something soft again. She taught a weekend yoga class at the local rec center. One Saturday, Eli wandered into her session by accident, looking for his sketchbook. She invited him to stay and stretch, even gave him a granola bar after. That's how it started. Later that month, we ran into her at the farmer's market. She remembered Eli's name, asked Maisie about her hair clip, and looked at me like she saw past the worn denim and grocery bags. We started slow. Coffee, a walk, dinner after the kids were asleep. I told her up front I came with history and 2 hungry mouths that weren't going anywhere. She told me she admired that. She said she was done with emotionally unavailable creatives and wanted something real. Delilah was easy to like. She had a soft Georgia drawl, a thing for herbal tea blends, and this way of talking about the world like everything was a chance to reset. She never pushed with the kids, at least not at first. She'd bring them little puzzles or leave handmade cards with their names. Eli called her Miss D. Maisie was slower to warm, but never impolite. I thought they were adjusting just cautiously. By month 4, she'd stayed over a few weekends. She helped make breakfast, offered to drive the kids to school once or twice when I was stuck on site. I started to think, maybe this is what building again looks like. Not replacing what I lost, but adding to it. When I proposed on a quiet walk through Piedmont Park, I did it with Claire in my heart, but Delilah in my arms. She cried, said yes, held the ring like it was a promise she'd already made. And for a time, I believed I was heading towards something good. But looking back now, I realized something she never asked about Claire. Not once. Not even the night I told her everything. She just said, "That must have been hard." Then she changed the subject. At the time, I thought she was giving me space. But now, I wonder if she was already starting to edit us down to something that fit her better. Do you know the moment you first ignore a red flag? I do. It was the night she called our house cute and followed it up with, "But imagine what we could do if we cleared some of the clutter, especially the kids' stuff." I laughed, brushed it off. And that's how it begins, isn't it? With someone who seems like home, until they try to redecorate it. They say love doesn't change people. It just reveals who they've been all along. After we got engaged, Delilah wasted no time diving into wedding planning. Color palettes, candle samples, Pinterest boards full of rustic barns and floral installations. She even bought a whiteboard just for the vision board, stuck it up in the kitchen next to the kids' weekly chore chart. At first, I thought it was charming, organized, passionate, but pretty soon her planning started creeping past the wedding. One Saturday morning, I found her flipping through a furniture catalog at the breakfast table. She circled a sleek, modern couch and asked, "Wouldn't it be nice to have something more grown up in the living room?" "The beanbags are kind of chaotic, babe." Eli loved those beanbags. He'd picked them out himself, bright green and orange. The living room wasn't stylish, but it was home. Then she mentioned the guest room, said it would be more functional as a calm retreat space for meditation or visitors. "You know," she added lightly, "we could move the kids' art supplies to the garage. Keep things tidier." My jaw tightened. That guest room wasn't just a guest room. It was the one place where Maisie could glue glitter to paper without worrying about mess, where Eli taped his drawings to the wall and built cardboard robots. It was ours. I told her gently, "That room's kinda sacred, D." "It's theirs." She smiled, but there was tension in her eyes. Of course I was just brainstorming. We'll figure it out. Still, that same week I noticed some of their stuff had been moved. The craft cart was missing from the hallway. She'd tucked it away in the closet for now, she said. Maisie didn't say anything, but she started spending more time in her room, headphones on. Delilah began cooking separately for herself, something cleaner, she said. The kids' mac and cheese was too processed. I caught her tossing away Eli's lunchbox gummies once. Then came the comments. Casual at first. "This neighborhood is sweet, but don't you think it's a bit noisy for school-aged kids trying to focus? Maisie's room could be so serene if we toned down the posters." One night she asked me what I thought about boarding schools. I laughed. I thought she was joking. She didn't laugh back. "Just asking. They have great programs, structure, independence." I told her plainly I want my kids here, with me. That's non-negotiable. She dropped it, for the moment. Then one Sunday she brought up her brother Rhett. "He's going through a rough patch," she said over brunch. "Laid off, staying with our parents, but it's not working." I'd heard of Rhett in passing, never met him. The way she talked, he sounded like a drifter. She made excuses for him, blamed his past bosses, the economy, bad timing. "He just needs space to reset," she said, eyes soft. I sipped my coffee and said nothing. A week later, she brought it up again, this time with more direction. After the wedding, I was thinking, if the kids went off to school, Rhett could stay here for a while, just until he gets back on his feet. I nearly choked. "Wait, what?" She blinked like it was obvious. "He wouldn't be in the way. He's family." And with the extra room, she meant the kids' space. I stood up from the table. "Delilah," I said slowly, "my kids aren't going anywhere. That room is theirs. This house is theirs. You knew that walking into this." She smiled tightly. "We'll revisit it later. Maybe after the honeymoon, once the things settle." But things didn't settle. They shifted. She started asking the kids more pointed questions: how they liked their school, whether they'd want to live somewhere exciting with big dorm rooms and cool libraries. Maisie got quiet again. Eli started asking strange questions. And one night he sat beside me, eyes big and uncertain, and said, "Dad, what's a boarding school?" That was the moment I realized this wasn't a future we were building. It was a blueprint she'd drawn without us. And my kids, she'd already erased them from the picture. That night, after Eli asked me what a boarding school was, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the edge of my bed, the hallway still faintly lit by the nightlight outside the kids' room. I could hear them breathing through the cracked door. Steady, safe, and downstairs Delilah was making tea. Chamomile, always chamomile, even when there was nothing calming about the air between us anymore. She came upstairs holding 2 mugs, but only set one down. "We need to talk," she said. The tone in her voice wasn't cruel, but it wasn't soft either. It was rehearsed. "I've been thinking," she began, "about how we're going to make this life work after the wedding. And I want to be honest about where I stand." I nodded slowly, heart already bracing. She took a breath. "The house. It's small for what we're trying to build. I mean, it's fine now, but long term it's not sustainable. And with Rhett possibly needing a place for a while, I raised my hand. No, she blinked. No what? No to Rhett living here. No to reworking the kids' rooms. No to sending them away so you can stretch out your lifestyle in a house that already fits perfectly for us. She put her mug down. Didn't touch it again. Caleb, she said carefully, I'm not asking you to abandon your children. I'm asking you to consider what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone, I repeated. No, what's best for you, for Rhett, for your vision of this curated, clean, peaceful little life that doesn't include sticky hands on the fridge or glitter in the carpet. Her face hardened. I need a partner who sees the bigger picture, who's willing to make hard decisions. If you're not even open to discussing boarding school, I stood. No. She stood too, crossed her arms. Then maybe we need to rethink everything. I can't marry someone who refuses to prioritize our future over his past. I stared at her stunned. My children are not my past. They're not an obstacle. They are my life. She didn't flinch. Her voice dropped an octave. This is your choice, Caleb. Me. Or them. For a long second, the room was dead silent, except for the faint hum of the air vent. Then I picked up the ring from the dresser. Walked it over. You think this is a choice, I asked. You think love is a negotiation and my kids are leverage. You never loved us. You loved the idea of what we could become once you edited out everything that made us real. She didn't answer. So I set the ring down on the table beside her tea, still warm. This wedding never existed, I said softly. Because if this is the cost, then we were never building the same future. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just watched me walk away. And when I reached the hallway, I turned back one last time. You talk about peace like it's something that comes from removing everything messy and human. But real peace is the sound of my daughter's pencil scratching at 10 p.m. because she's rewriting a story for fun. Real peace is Eli waking up with bad hair and hugging me anyway. That's what I choose. Delilah didn't move, and I didn't look back again. That night I crawled into bed between Maisie and Eli. They were half asleep, warm, heavy with trust. And in the stillness I realized I hadn't lost anything. I just avoided the worst mistake of my life. The morning after I ended it, the house was quiet in a way that didn't feel empty. It felt right. The tension that had been pressing into the walls for weeks had lifted. Maisie came downstairs first, her eyes cautious. Is Miss Delilah coming over today? I shook my head. No, honey, she won't be coming over anymore. Maisie just nodded. She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. Eli asked if we could put the beanbags back in the living room. I helped him carry them out myself. Then I made some calls. Venue canceled. Caterer refunded half-ate the rest. Florist already too far in. I told them to donate the arrangements to the nursing home across town. Custom signage tossed. Whiteboard vision board wiped clean. I didn't send out an official announcement. I didn't post anything. I wasn't looking for pity. But Delilah? She went another route. 3 days later, I started getting texts from people I hadn't heard from in months. A friend from church asked if everything was okay. A cousin of hers messaged me with praying for y'all. Then I got a voicemail from someone I didn't even know that started with man. I heard what she said you did. Delilah had started talking, painting herself as the victim. The story according to her version was that I panicked at the idea of commitment and refused to integrate our lives. She said I had walls up and was emotionally volatile. She told people I was too rigid about the kids, that I couldn't see past my own grief. The most audacious part, she said I kicked her out without warning and kept her things hostage. I stared at that line in a text from one of her friends and laughed out loud. Everything she'd ever brought into this house had been packed and neatly left for her on the porch the morning after. I even folded the scarves. The worst of it came a week later when she called me directly. I need to talk about the deposits, she said, her voice clipped. The caterer, my dress. I spent thousands, Caleb. I covered the venue, the band, and the invitations, I reminded her. That was close to $5,000. We're even, she huffed. You're the one who ended it. That's on you. I ended it, I said evenly, because you asked me to choose between my children and you. You're lucky I didn't send you a bill for emotional damages. Click. After that, she tried emails, then voicemails, then a message through a mutual acquaintance threatening small claims court. She wasn't done with me, but I was already gone. I stopped responding. I blocked her number. I blocked her email. I let her burn through the oxygen of her own storytelling until everyone around her started to suffocate. The thing about lies is they only work when they stay vague, and Delilah couldn't help herself. She kept spinning, and soon enough her own words started to contradict. People started backing off. Mutual friends stopped calling. A few sent quiet messages. I didn't know everything. I'm sorry I didn't respond, because this wasn't about clearing my name. It was about protecting my children. I kept things steady at home. Work during the day, homework at night, pancakes on Sunday. Maisie started drawing again. Eli asked if we could repaint his room green. One night I found a crumpled note under my pillow. It was from Maisie. In her careful, looping handwriting, thank you for not choosing her. Thank you for choosing us. I sat on the edge of the bed and cried quietly, one hand pressed to my chest like I was holding something in. Because that was it. That's what Delilah never understood. Marriage doesn't begin with sacrifice. It begins with alignment. And the moment she saw my children as replaceable, she proved she never deserved to stand beside them. I didn't need revenge. She was writing it herself, one voicemail, one lie, one unraveling friendship at a time. All I had to do was keep showing up for my family, and that was enough. It was 2 weeks after the silence began, after I blocked Delilah's number, after the last voicemail that started with, "You'll regret this," when the knock came. Not at the front door, the side one. The one no one used unless they were trying not to be seen. I opened it slowly and found her standing there in leggings and a hoodie, makeup smudged, eyes red. She looked smaller. Not physically, but somehow diminished, like her confidence had been siphoned off somewhere between the courthouse and a gas station. She didn't say hello. She just whispered, I need your help. I didn't step aside. Rhett stole everything she said, voice trembling. He got into my savings, into my business account. I don't even know how he must have taken my phone, got into my banking app. It's gone, Caleb. Every last cent. I let the words settle in the space between us, her breath visible in the early spring air. The wind carried the smell of wet pine and old paint. The porch light buzzed above us. I don't know where he is, she added. He hasn't answered texts. My parents haven't seen him in days. She looked up, then eyes glossy. I made a mistake, she said. I thought I was helping him. I thought you were being heartless. But I was wrong. About him. About everything. I studied her for a moment. This wasn't the woman who stood in my kitchen and told me to choose. This wasn't the woman who smiled at brunch and said we could rework the house. This was someone whose fantasy had eaten itself alive. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a folded check. I know I don't deserve it, but if you could just lend me something to get by, I'll pay you back, I promise. I'm scared, Caleb. She started to cry. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet, exhausted tears. The kind that come when even pride gives up. I exhaled slowly. I'm sorry this happened to you, I said. Truly. But this isn't my problem to fix. Her face crumpled. You're really going to turn me away? I nodded calm. Delilah, you came into my home and asked me to give up my children for your brother. You made it sound like love required sacrifice. But what you meant was convenience. You weren't trying to build a family. You were trying to renovate it to suit your comfort. She stepped back. That's not fair. It's honest, I said, cutting her off. And now that Rhett's gone and your accounts are empty and the friends you lied to aren't picking up anymore, you're here. You're not here for me. You're here because I'm the last person left who once gave a damn. Her shoulders collapsed inward. I'm not the villain you think I am, she whispered. No, I said. You're just someone who made a choice, and now you're living with it. She stood there a long while, shivering, waiting for something I wasn't offering. Eventually, I stepped back and closed the door, quietly. Maisie was in the hallway. I didn't know she'd heard anything. Was that her, she asked? I nodded. What did she want to undo what she did, I said softly. Maisie looked down. Did you let her? I paused, then shook my head. No, I said. Some things don't get undone. That night I stood by the kitchen window and watched her car pull away. Taillights disappearing past the neighborhood curve, a hollow silence left in its place. In the weeks that followed, I heard bits and pieces. Mutual friends distanced themselves. A former yoga client of hers messaged me saying Delilah was asking around for money just until she got back on her feet. Someone else said she tried moving back in with her parents. That lasted 3 days. As for Rhett, word was he skipped town, maxed out her cards, pawned some jewelry she'd inherited. She tried filing a report, but the damage was done. Her accounts drained, her name flagged in fraud disputes, her lease in default. And still not once did I feel sorry in the way she probably hoped I would. Because she didn't lose to karma. She lost to her own choices. She built a future on leverage. And when that leverage failed her, she had no foundation left. But I did. And every night in a house filled with drawings on the fridge and spilled juice on the floor, I remembered exactly why I chose the life I did. Because love doesn't ask you to erase your family. It joins it or it walks away. A few months passed. Spring folded into early summer, and our house slowly filled with the sounds I'd almost forgotten how to cherish. Maisie humming, while she read Eli, pretending the beanbags were spaceships again, the kitchen radio playing too loud on Sunday mornings. We didn't talk about Delilah much. She became like a forgotten shelf, once dusted, then ignored. Not out of hate, just irrelevance. The wedding date came and went. The day I would have said I do, I grilled burgers in the backyard with the kids, Maisie mixing lemonade, Eli building a tent out of bed sheets. We laughed. We got sunburned. I fell asleep in a lawn chair with a book still open on my chest. Later that night, Maisie curled up beside me on the couch. Dad, she said, do you think some people only love the version of us they imagine, not the real us? I turned toward her, heart pinched by the weight of how much she'd grown through this. Yeah, I said quietly. I think some people fall in love with potential, not presence, but the right people. They stay for who you are, not who they wish you were. She nodded and went back to her sketchbook, satisfied with the answer. That was the thing about kids. They saw more than they said. I thought back to the man I was 6 months ago, hopeful, tired, trying to believe love could be rebuilt like a house brick by brick. But love isn't architecture. It's not something you redesign to match someone else's color palette. It's something you live in, mess and all. And if someone knocks on your door and asks you to send your children away just to make room for their version of peace, you don't answer with silence. You answer with clarity. You close the door, lock it gently, and go sit with your kids instead. Because peace was already here. It had 2 bedrooms, a fridge covered in drawings, and called me Dad. Sometimes the people who claim to love you will ask for quiet compromises, small adjustments that piece by piece chip away at who you are and what you hold sacred. But real love, it doesn't ask you to choose between peace and your people. It becomes peace when it meets your values where they live. Delilah thought she could edit my life to fit her comfort. But in the end, it wasn't my life that unraveled, it was hers. Because when you try to build a future by erasing someone else's past, you're not planting roots. You're cutting them. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I simply said no. And sometimes that's the loudest kind of truth. So what would you have done in my shoes if you believed no love is worth sacrificing your children for? Leave a number 2 in the comments. If you think Caleb should have taken Delilah back, vote number 7 and tell me where you're listening from. I read every message. Don't forget to subscribe to Revenge with Max for more stories where calm doesn't mean weakness, it means clarity.